you.
Welcome, everybody. This is my name's Virginia Pierce, and I work at the South Carolina State Library in Columbia, South Carolina. And I just appreciate that all of you took the time to come and join Dr. Curry and us at the State Library to on his really interesting presentation. Dr. Curry is a genealogist, an author, a publisher, and as I learn more about him, all sorts of things. He's always working in the community, trying to get South Carolina history and African-American, more local African-American history in the school books and classrooms, which is really important. So he's doing a lot of great work in our South Carolina community, and he has so much to offer. Really appreciate that that you came, Dr. Curry, today, and to teach us about, yes, sir, writing your family history book, the narrative history approach. And I think you're going to talk a little bit about the last two books that you've written. He's written The Thompson Family, Untold Stories from the Past, which he published in 2018 and won an award for. And he completed in 2021, The Awakening, the C. Wright Ellison Family Saga, Volume 1, A Narrative History. So perhaps you'll touch on some of those today. Dr. Curry received the 2019 International African American Historical and Genealogy Society Book Award, and he's been recognized by the South Carolina Legislature for his significant work in service to African American history and heritage in our state of South Carolina. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Curry. He has lots to share, and thank you for coming today, Dr. Curry.
Thank you, Vivian, for that wonderful introduction. First of all, I just want to say good afternoon. I just want to thank everyone for taking your time to join us today on this fabulous presentation. The title of the presentation is Writing Your Family History Book, the Narrative History Approach. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. I know we have an hour, so many things I would like to cover, but many of the topics that I'm going to share with you will be mainly strategies and tips to help you get started. And hopefully after this presentation is over, we will be able to move forward with some other initiatives and strategies to really get into the practical aspects in writing your family history book. The presentation outline, these are the presentation topics that we will go over. What is narrative history? How do we begin to write narrative history about our family? Narrative history approach, biography, research and writing strategies, resources, and we will conclude with Q&A. History is all around us. It's still being found today. And that is so true when we look at history. It doesn't matter where we go, doesn't matter who we are, we're always surrounded by history. What we read, what we share with each other, the old adage, history does repeats itself. There are many branches of history, but today we will focus on narrative history. So the question is, what is narrative history? Narrative history is simply a story about an individual or a specific event. Narrative history includes biographies, collective biographies, or memoirs. And so these two statements define narrative history. So how do we begin to write narrative history about our family? And the reason you all are here today is because you are interested in writing about your family history, like I have done, and what some of you have already done. We begin by starting from what we already know about our relatives. And that is so true, because oftentimes we would like to venture off in other areas outside of what we know. But I always say that if you're going to start on your family history research, you should start on what you already know about your family. Then we begin to gather information that we already have about our relatives. Obituaries. Obituaries are commonplace. Every time we go to a funeral, we usually have an obituary. An obituary tells the story about a person's life. On my mother's side, we keep a lot of records. And so when I was coming up, I always loved to visit my aunt, and my aunt has kept obituaries of my grandparents and other relatives. And that's how I'm able to know a lot about my maternal family history. And I do the same myself. Oral accounts. Oral accounts are extremely important. Oral accounts simply means oral history. Oral history is very commonplace in the African American community, and it's also commonplace in all communities. Oral history or oral accounts simply meaning telling stories by word of mouth. Military documents. We do know individuals and even relatives in our family who serve in the military, various wars, Revolutionary War, Civil War. I am a descendant of a Civil War veteran who served on the Confederate side, World War I, World War II. You can glean a lot of information about relatives who serve in the military and their service. Cemetery records and markers. One of my favorite sources of information. You could go to your family cemeteries and identify relatives, their date of birth, the year of their death. And some cemetery markers have words, epitaph graphs about that particular relative, including military markers. Family Bibles. Family Bibles, I believe, is a very important source. I know in my family, we keep family Bibles. Family Bibles usually detail the family tree, but family Bibles also have other information like diaries and letters of relatives. So family Bibles are a vital source. Newspaper accounts. You could even look at newspaper accounts. I like to use www.newspapers.com. It is an excellent resource. You can Google, type in a relative, and you'd be surprised what you will find, particularly with oral accounts. I remember in my family, the story of my cousin who died at the age of 10 years old, which was told to me, and his name was Governor Mint Thompson Jr. And so I decided to Google his name on newspaper.com, and I found countless articles referencing his murder and also what started it. So newspaper accounts are vitally important. Anything is written and relative to our family history. So it's very important to gather information that you already have about your relatives and explore other sources of information as well. Then we can begin writing about our family. And so we're going to focus on the narrative history approach. And many narrative history is written in form of biographies, memoirs, autobiographies. But for the sake of this presentation, we will focus on biography. And a biography, an individual biography, is an account of someone's life written by someone else. And a collective biography, an account of individuals who belong to a family or organization. And so when we look at narrative history, we all have read biographies about famous individuals, like former President Barack Obama, Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass, and others. They have individual biographies, and collective biographies, like my book, The Awakening the C. Wright Ellison Family Saga, is a book of collective biographies about individuals in my family and organizations, fraternities and sororities, Masonic organizations, government, members of Congress. And so collective biographies, when it comes to family history, basically meaning writing about individuals in your family, because a family is a collective organization. And so that sums up the definition of biography according to the narrative history approach. What are the key features of a biography? It's very important to know the key features. Name, date, place of birth of the individual, personal life, education and occupation, important life events, areas of achievement, and individual significance to their field and impact on the world. So these are the key features of a biography. And these key features are very, very simple. And when you read a biography, you will usually see these features. And so we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the presentation. And I'm going to share with you research and writing strategies. So I always believe that when you do research, particularly family history research, it's important that you focus your research. So focusing your research, AKA the research process. And so we're going to deliberate about what that means. Compile a chronological timeline of the central facts, dates, and events of the subject or individual life. A chronological timeline simply means from the beginning of a person's life to the end. And when you study history, including family history, timelines are vitally important, particularly when you purchase history books. Some history books will include timelines. So compiling a chronological timeline is a very helpful tool to help you organize your work. Compile detailed descriptions of the following personal traits: physical looks, character traits, values, and beliefs. That coincides with one of the key features of the biography, personal life. What are the values and beliefs of the individual? The physical looks. How did they look? Character traits. What were some of their character traits did the individual possess? Were they humble? Were they charismatic, mean-spirited, friendly, outgoing, so forth? Compile some research questions based on different topics to provide a focus for the research. And so some of these research questions are childhood. Where and when were they born? Meaning the individuals. Who were their parents? Who were the other family members? What education did they receive? Obstacles. What challenges did they have to overcome? How did these challenges shape them as an individual? Which is very important because you really want to go deep into that. What were some of the obstacles that they had to overcome in their life? Legacy. What impact did this person have on the world and or the people around them? How did they make a difference in their family, in their communities, among their friends, in their job, so forth? Dialogue and quotes. I love this. Dialogue and quotations by and about the subject are a great way to bring color and life to a biography. In the book, The Awakening, I've used several quotes. My great-grandfather, Robert C. Wright, was a very charismatic person. And I remember interviewing my cousin who remembered him. She said when she saw my great-grandfather in the field working, he was working very hard, but he always had a grin when she saw him. And she asked him, Cousin Robert, what are you doing? And she was like, baby, I'm packing sand for the good old USA. And I used that quote in my book and several quotes about my great-grandfather that kind of bring him out more. So we know about dialogue and quotes about individuals in our family. So you definitely want to include that in your research. So I remember, and you should too, in English class, the English teacher will always tell us before we begin writing a paragraph or essay, we should outline it. And so there's no difference here. So getting started, you definitely want to use a biography outline. And a biography outline helps you organize your research and structure your writing. The biography outline includes the 6 key features of a biography. And I'm going to screen share, show you an example of a of an outline here. Let's see. And so this is a sample biography outline. The directions in each category include the following information. Feel free to use as much space as possible, or you can create your own outline using the categories from the form. And so this outline includes the key features of a biography that I went over: name, date, place, and birth of the individual, personal life, education and occupation, important life events, areas of achievement, individual significance to their field and impact on the world, and list your sources. And I'm going to explain that in a little bit. But this is a sample biography outline that you can use, and you could also create your own outline as well. And I will share this after the presentation to everybody. So I'm gonna go back to my screen. Presentation. And so there are some tips in completing your biography outline. You want to gather your sources, obituaries, military records, or histories, and list your sources. I cannot stress that enough. You definitely want to do that. Use as much space as needed. You can copy the outline manually and complete it on a sheet of paper. I referenced that. Include dates as much as possible in completing the sections. History is all about dates, so you definitely want to keep that in mind. And so once you complete your outline, then the next step is structuring your biography for writing. So you definitely want to make sure that you structure your writing. And in structuring your writing, there are some strategies that you can use. Orientation. Open your biography with a strong hook to grab the reader's attention. That's very, very important. And I have to share it in the next webinar, hopefully, on some key literary devices and strategies to create a strong hook. Sequencing. In most cases, biographies are written in chronological order from beginning to end of an individual, unless you're a very competent writer consciously trying to break from the trend. But I recommend that for writing your family history, if you're a beginner, that you write your biographies in chronological order. It makes it very easier to do, and your outline could definitely help you with that. Details, childhood, upbringing, education, influences, accomplishments, and relationships, etc. Everything that helps the reader to understand the person. So you definitely want to structure your biography, focusing on these features. Also, conclusion. You definitely want to wrap your biography up with some details about what the subject is doing now, if they are still alive, if they have passed away. Make mention of what impact they have made or what their legacy is or will be. So a strong conclusion is very, very important. And there are some strategies and literary devices that you can use to write a strong conclusion. Tense, vitally important. Many biographies are written in the past tense, though the ending may shift to the present and future tense. There's some flexibility there. Write in third person point of view. Many biographies are written in the third person. Pronouns, he, she, they, him, her, them, individual, first name. If you write an autobiography or a memoir, many of those memoirs are written in first person and third person. It depends on the writer preference. After you think about the strategies, you want to begin to write your rough draft. That's very, very important. Just like in English class, I remember going to school, the English teacher will say you have to, before you turn in your final draft, you have to write in your rough draft. Sometimes I want to turn in my rough draft for my final draft. It didn't work. But you definitely want to write your rough draft. And before you write your rough draft, you want to outline your rough draft. And so a general outline will include the orientation, the beginning or hook, the details, the middle, and the conclusion, the end. So it's very, very simple. The beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning is the orientation, the details, the middle, and the conclusion, the end. And you have a discrepancy, not a discrepancy, but a preference on how long the orientation, the details, and the conclusion text should be. Once you complete your rough draft, then type your work on your Word document program, Microsoft, Google, on your computer, and save your work. Vitally important, particularly when it's time to publish your family history. You definitely want to save your work because you're going to need it to begin the publication process. Make sure you title your stories and saving your work necessary for publishing your family history. I mentioned that. Other writing tips: add historical context. Historical context is very, very important. Historical context simply means the setting in which a historical event, idea, or object take place. You also want to add social context, includes the groups with whom they interact and the culture in how they live. And just want to reiterate historical context. Let's say you discover a relative who served in World War I. You want to do some research on World War I and how World War I connects to your relative military service. Social context, basically dealing with interaction and culture. You'd be surprised that when you study the individuals in your family, social context plays a huge role. Culture plays a huge role in how we think and how we feel. And so social context is a huge bonus in really bringing out the biography about your relatives. finding themes in your biography. Themes basically meaning the main idea, the lessons. Themes also help you organize and structure your writing as well. The main point. Go back. And so these other writing tips, context, and themes can strengthen your writing in writing your biographies. Resources, very important that you consider using resources. This resource here, My Best Genealogy Tips, Finding Former Enslaved Ancestors, written by my good friend Robin R. Foster. She has compiled a book, and this book is what I consider the Bible of genealogical research in the African American community. She goes into tips and strategies that you can use to go beyond 1870. We all know that the 1870 was the year that African Americans were recorded in the federal census. But sometimes it's hard for us to go beyond 1870. And so this book will give you tips and strategies on how to do that. Practical Genealogy, 50 simple steps to research your diverse family history by Brian Shelfie. His book is available at Amazon.com. It's a great book. I have it. Very simple steps. He goes into research strategies. He goes into sharing tips about strategies to retrieve documents about your relatives, and other strategies that you can use in your family history research. This is a memoir called Tracing Their Steps by Bernice A. Bennett, also available on Amazon.com. I also believe that if you're going to be an effective writer in family history, it's good that you learn from others and get tips and strategies and ideas on what others have done in publishing their family histories. And so this book by Bernice Bennett is a memoir about her relative dating back in slavery before the Civil War, and how her relative was able to purchase over 150 acres of land under the Homestead Act of 1862. But this is a memoir. And again, using this resource, if you decide to write a memoir, I recommend this book, and this book could give you some ideas as well as other memoirs out there. Our Ancestor, Our Stories, written by Bernice A. Bennett, her relatives, sisters, cousins, Harris Bailey, Ellen Butler, Ethel Daly, and Vincent Shepard. It's also available on Amazon. This book is mainly collective biographies of individuals. This is a good resource if you would like to write about individuals in your family, and you can glean ideas on writing a collective biography. And my book, The Awakening, C. Wright Ellison Family Saga, Volume 1, A Narrative History. This book is available for purchase at WW Renaissance Pub LLC, which is my company website. address. And this book is a collective biography of individuals in the C. Wright Ellison family. And so this book and the other book, I would recommend if you're interested in writing a collective biography or even an individual biography. So the point is to learn from others and see what others have done and gain ideas to begin your work. Other resources too, how to write a biography. I would recommend that you look at these website links, literacyideas.com, how to write a biography. I would recommend that you look at that website. It has some tools and strategies to help you write your biography. And I'll also recommend to do some Googling. Go to Amazon and type writing family history, and you'd be surprised what you will be able to find. Resources automatically pull up. You type in writing family history and it will pull up books on that topic. And another website, www.examples.com, on how to write a rough draft outline. It's a great resource as well. So as you can see, resources are very, very important. This is information about my company. I'm the founder of Renaissance Publications, LLC. This is my social media page, www.facebook.com, Renaissance Publications, LLC. My contact information, I can be reached by phone, 803-404-2117, and email, Renaissance Publications, LLC @gmail.com. And so this presentation is being recorded. And so I will share this presentation with everyone, as well as some resources that you can use to begin writing your family history using the narrative history approach. And so this is the end of my presentation. I just want to thank everyone for participating. And at this time, I will entertain questions.
Thanks, Dr. Curry.
Thank you.
Last time, that was really good. It was so interesting. I tried to write notes as we went. You had mentioned that you also have a newsletter that anybody that was interested could sign up, and you always share great information on your newsletters of historical information or things that are going on in the community.
Yes, my newsletter, I do have a monthly newsletter. Sometimes I will send the newsletter out periodically, but you can subscribe to my newsletter on my website, which is www.renaissancepubllc.com, and just stroll down to the end of the web page to see subscribe your newsletter and just type in your information. Also, I forgot to mention the South Carolina State Library has resources too that you could use as well for your research.
I had a question.
Yes.
It really helped. I was taking a bunch of notes too, and it really kind of helps, to see it and outline it. I guess my trouble is when you talked about, I guess the extra stuff. For example, there's not a lot. I'm not finding a lot in, say, like newspapers when it comes to, for example, African-American family members. There's no, I'm not finding, for example, things in society type pages. Or do you have any clues on finding, those little extra pieces that, sort of made the person who they are. I've got hundreds of cousins, and they don't seem to know anything about their parents. I'm giving them information. So I was
Right.
just trying to kind of broaden, what I can add to the personalities of, for example, my dad's, there are 14 kids, and, just trying to, add some things.
That's a great question. With newspaper.com, the reason why it was effective for me because I learned a lot of the family history through oral stories, and my memory is very long. And so I just went on newspaper.com to see what I could find, and that's how I was able to identify a lot of the sources, and I use it especially with my first book. But I would recommend that you look at every possible avenue to gather information. When you talk about family history begins with, I believe, knowing what you already have in front of you. Now, as far as character traits of an individual, what has worked for me was basically interviews. I interviewed several relatives in my family. I also interviewed relatives down the line who remember some of the individuals that I've written about and studied about. So that could be very, very helpful. And also, you want to not get too confused with the research as well. Sometimes we hit a brick wall, and there are strategies that you can use to go beyond those brick walls, to tear down those brick walls, using the resources that I mentioned during the presentation. But there are some cases where you're not going to overcome the brick wall. And any genealogist will tell you that brick walls do exist in our research. I will also recommend too that you may want to learn from your experiences about a relative. Sometimes it's not necessary to interview relatives about certain family members. If you have information already about a family member and you know a lot about that family member and you have experiences about that family member, then you can start with you. And sometimes that's even better, because when you're trying to research family members and depend on other family members, sometimes it may work or sometimes it may not. Also, anyone in the community that you may know who knew or remember your relative that you're researching about. You'd be surprised, you could find friends and acquaintances who are willing to share information with you about your relative. So there are many strategies out there available to help you and assist you.
Hello, this is Melissa from the Green Seeds Lloyds area of South Carolina.
Hello.
And hi. And
Great.
I want to do something a little bit, I'm wanting to do something a little bit different out here in our community. We don't have a whole lot of newspaper resources here. It's an interesting, very rural part of Eastern South Carolina. But I partner with our Horry County Council on Aging Senior Center. And one of the things that I really want to do is do some oral history with them, because I feel like, especially our young people, are missing out on so much. Do
Right.
you have any recommendations for helping with that, get that kind of moving. Because I mean, like our oldest, Miss Esteline is 92, and with her, as when she goes, her history will go with her. And I
Right.
want to make sure that we're putting this in either oral form or written form, something.
That's a great question. Oral history is very, very important. There are resources out there that can help you begin an oral history project. I would recommend that you begin doing just that. I would say when you are conducting oral history, the first thing you want to do is to do research on the individual, meaning interview questions. You definitely want to take the time to do some background research about the individual so you will know the questions that you would ask that individual during the interview. Oftentimes, I've learned this mistake when I first did oral history. I just came in there without, any interview questions because I knew that person. But at the same time, I realized that if you want to capture the content from the interview, it's very, very important to be prepared. And so to be prepared, I would recommend you do some background research about the person. It doesn't have to be extensive, but just to know something about that person, and then come up with interview questions. I mean, there are interview questions, sample interview questions out there from various resources. In fact, you can Google oral history questions, and it will show interview questions that you can use for a particular interviewee. So I will start there, and then once you begin doing your oral history project, interviewing the folks, you definitely need to have a recorder, a tape recorder. I recommend that you do that. Many cell phones do have recording that you can use, but I would recommend using a small tape recorder so you can interview the person correctly. And then you need to transcribe that interview as well. And there are transcription services out there that you can use. But I would recommend that you do those steps first. But little background research about the individual, prepare interview questions, get a recorder, and get it transcribed, because the transcription will reveal the content of the interview. Make sure that it's in a very quiet place, quiet area. You don't want to have a lot of people. You don't want to have a lot of noise during the interview, and have fun with it. Be casual in the interview, meaning you want to have interaction, and so there's strategies that you can use to do a successful oral history project.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Walter, this is Teresa.
Hey, Coach Teresa, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. I was going to mention that the courthouse is a great resource. The county courthouses are
Yeah.
great resources. I did find some information there, and also I think it's called the South Carolina Genealogy and Historical, the one on Park Lane. I don't know the correct name, but it's a source where I've gone and gotten land, not mortgages, deeds, deeds and plats of land that my ancestors owned from the early 1900s. So I was going to say I did use that resource. I can't think of the name of it though. The one on Park Lane,
The one on Park Lane,
the South Carolina
the South Carolina Archives and History Center.
Archives and History. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
and-
forgot to mention that. Yes, the South Carolina Archives and History Center, right there on Park Lane in Columbia. There are countless resources and information that you could use, and people who are willing to help you
Yes.
there. And I'm glad you brought that point up, because courthouse records are valuable resources. But to your point, what I mentioned during the presentation, that you want to gather as much information as possible about your relative. If your relative own land, then yes, the South Carolina Archives and History Center is one of the places that you should go to. Also, you have to consider there are some cases that the Archive Center may not have the courthouse records. So you may have to consult your county courthouse records. Like in Barnwell County, Barnwell County has wills that go back to the 19th century. Those wills are not in the Aiken County Courthouse. Particularly in our family, Barnwell County or Barnwell District went up to the Kitchens Mill area. And so I can't go to Aiken County to locate those records. I have to go to Barnwell County, because Barnwell County, Barnwell District, Barnwell was actually the county seat of Barnwell District. So that's an example where you may have to go to your local courthouse and get information too. Also deeds, plats. I know at the archives, many of the deeds and plats were written manually. Some were typed later on, meaning that those records were transcribed, but many of the deeds and transcripts, land records, were written manually. So you have to get a copy, and you have to get someone to transcribe those records. And that's why you definitely want to find out whether or not your local community has a genealogical society. There are genealogical societies across the state. The South Carolina Genealogical Society, I forgot to mention this during my presentation. County geological societies, there's folks who can help you with your research as well, for records and other sources of information. So that's a great point. Courthouse records are vitally important.
Thanks for sharing all of those resources y'all are thinking of.
This is Tanya Rogers. Another resource is the Utah Mormon Genealogy Center. My sister found quite a bit of information for one side of our family when she visited that facility. She just happened to be going there for business, and we were working on our family history. So she visited there for our mother's side. She found quite a bit of information, but not for our father. And also the US Census. They just released the 1950 census.
Right.
And yeah, but you're lucky if you can find some information. I come from a family where we don't really trust the man, the government. So it's hard for us to find any information in the census for our family. I spent a whole weekend searching the 1950 census and didn't find any names of any of my family in there, but that's another source for information if you're looking.
Yes, yes, that's a great point. And the 1950 census is out. The Utah Center, the Mormons, I think it's the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Yes.
Yes, the Church of Latter-day Saints, they have resources that you could glean from about your family. They're very active. I know in Aiken, where the bulk of my research is, the Center for African American History, Arts, and Culture has partnered with the Church of Latter-day Saints to do African American genealogical research down there. So yes, any resource that you could use that could help you further your research. So that's very, very important. And that's one of the reasons why I'm a firm believer in starting where you are. Gathering those resources that you already have to begin your research, and then identifying clues that could lead you to possible leads in your research.
Anybody else have a question? Thanks, Quintel.
Thank
This
you.
is a great group, and y'all are so kind to share additional resources with each other. That's a really nice thing to be able to do. Linda said, "Thank you, Dr. Curry. These are
Thank
excellent
you.
tips, resources, and strategies."
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We've got a few librarians here, so that's really nice. Y'all can spread the word.
Yes, yes, and my goal is to further expand on this topic. I'm going to be adding more stuff as we move along, and I would love to connect with other libraries to do presentations and also workshops. There's a need for workshops that I will be planning in the near future as well to help us get going and to provide a strategies to help you write your family history book. And also the publication process. I know people out there want to know how to publish their family history. And I have my cousin Taretha right here who published my first book, and you could reach out to her too. And so Taretha, could you for a minute share your information with the folk?
Yes, thank you, Walter. My name is Taretha Wright. I have a company called Wright Stuff. That's wrightstuff1f.com. And what I do is help people get their works in print. We edit, and we also help you get your books up on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and any of those online resources. So my information is wrightstuff1f.com. And you can contact me at Taretha Wright, TorethaWright, @gmail.com if you're interested. And thanks again for that.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Miss Grantham was just asking me that after you had left, Dr. Curry. So I'm going to tell her that information if she doesn't already know. That's wonderful.
Right.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. This was the sixth African American genealogy webinar program in this series, and I'm really excited that so many folks in South Carolina, librarians, folks all across the country have participated in our webinars. This has been really wonderful, and we want to keep the momentum going. I think this is a really important thing for us to get together and share information and learn from local experts like Dr. Curry. So we'll try to organize something again, maybe in 2023 or after that. And keep in touch with us at the State Library, and I love that you shared your information, Dr. Curry, in
Thank
your
you.
in the slides. So just keep in touch, and we can't do all your research for you, but we can sure get you started. And if you're in another state, definitely call me or our reference department, and we can look up obituaries and do some preliminary research for you. We would love to do that for you. So just let us know what we can do to help. And Miss Allman said, does the State Library have a newsletter or email list? Yes, ma'am, we sure do. So I'd be glad to add you to the list if you would like. And anybody else, call me at 803-734-8646. I'd be glad to add you to the list. And I think I put my email in there earlier, bpierce, P-I-E-R-C-E @statelibrary.sc.gov. That would let you know next time we're having a program like this. We'd love for you to join us.
Yes, yes, and thank you, Virginia, for putting all of this together. This is the final webinar of the African American Genealogy Series that has been ongoing since May. But I will also recommend that you reach out to the other presenters as well. Do that. Again, you know, one thing about history, and I'm learning more and more that we all don't know it all. And we're still learning, we're still growing. There's some things that I'm still learning too, based on my experience. And so you want to keep an open mind. Feel free to reach out to me. My email address, my contact information, libraries, if you're interested in having me do a presentation, I'll be glad to do that. But we're going to further this more and more because there is momentum for individuals like yourself who want to write family history. And so I appreciate everyone taking the time out on their busy Wednesday schedule to be a part of this.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks, Dr. Curry, and we will see you next time then, next program that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And thanks all of you for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you.